was particular reference made to the consultation done with tenants, and also the role that the Derby Homes Board have played in putting that suggestion forward. So I think that's credit that the work we are doing in consultation with the council in relation to these the business plan is recognised.
Good. Okay, right. Yes, thank you. Moving on, any matters arising from page 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. Okay, right, thank you. Outstanding actions, just looking through those. Item number 1, the social value strategy is still ongoing, and I believe we would like to put that back. Yes.
Yeah, that's correct, Chair.
Yeah. Item 2 is on the agenda. We've just discussed item 3, and the 4 and 5 are for future actions.
Yeah.
Right. We'll now move on to Michael to A5 for finance update.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I hope everybody's had a chance to read this document. I wasn't proposing to go through it in great detail, but I would just like to make reference initially to the management accounts and our projected surplus of £500,000 this year, which is roughly about 1% of turnover. You'll note in the table shown in 4.1 where we're summarising the larger overspends and the underspends this year, and I just wanted to touch on the couple of larger overspend areas. Understandably, on our day-to-day repair service, we've got a backlog of jobs coming through following the decrease in the COVID affected year, and that's going to give us an overspend this year, and it's actually updated from that figure. It's closer to 400,000 now. Separately, on Milestone House, because we're constantly monitoring the health and safety requirements there for our staff and for our users there, we've had to increase the level of security at the site this year. So we're expecting an extra £300,000 worth of extra costs in relation to the increased security, but the level of security is constantly being reviewed, and hopefully at some stage that will reduce back down again. But those are the two main overspending areas this year. Any other queries on the management accounts or any other aspects noted in the report?
Alan, yes.
Not directly within this report, but I'm interested to know. I think it's called the Getting Better Together or something that would cost us a lot of money as a slogan. Are we taking over the neighbourhood board funding?
Maria, can you answer that?
Chair?
Yeah.
The way that the neighbourhood ward funds are administrated is something that we are talking about with Democratic Services at the moment, Alan. It's the mechanism around the evidencing of decisions and authorisation for payment that we're discussing, and I expect that to conclude probably within the next couple of months, and I'll be able to report back to the board. If any additional work does come to Derby Homes, it will not incur any additional cost for Derby Homes.
I just wanted to put this on record with all the board members that I will be very upset if the funding for neighbourhood boards disappears into Derby Homes coffers.
Yeah, that isn't the intention with the discussions, Alan. It is purely the administration of that, the decision making, and the purpose for which neighbourhood board funding's in place wouldn't change. But I believe any changes would have to go through the council anyway, because it's currently within the council's constitution. So all councillors would have the opportunity to debate it.
Okay, right. Thank you, Alan. I've got 3 others. I think the order was Lucy, Bob, and then Ian.
Thank you. I have 2 things. One is just a point of clarification in the table are 4.2, and it
Yeah.
says the 5th item down says path inspections and works, less remedial works. Does that mean less work has been done? That the amount of spend on that has been less than expected?
It's the latter. When we set up the well-managed highways budget a couple of years ago, we wasn't totally certain what level of remedial works would come through from the inspections. Now we've had a couple of years worth of inspections. What we're finding is that what they're picking up on the inspections, the costs of them are relatively low, and therefore there's a significant underspend against that works budget, and that's coming out as part of next year's savings.
Okay, so it's actually a real saving, not work that's being postponed.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, lovely. Thank you for that. And secondly, in terms of this, the pension contributions, which we're talking about paying in advance, this is hoping that the investment produces an income in effect. What if it doesn't? What happens? Who takes the liability if it's actually negative interest at the end of the year?
What would happen is the investment returns on the pension fund go up or down. They balance off against the residual deficit, like it will be on the pension scheme. So it just goes into the mix in the overall pension scheme. So notionally, it would increase the liability on Derby Holmes's balance sheet. But as we know, the agreement is with the council for any changes in the employer contributions that gets funded via the management fee. So ultimately, the profit or loss on those investments would benefit or be the detriment of the HRA. The theory is that over the medium term, if you carry on with this type of strategy, investment returns via the pension scheme will be higher than the money sitting in Derby Holmes's money market accounts, which are attracting virtually no interest at all at the minute.
But in the short term, it could be a liability to us, but we won't feel it. The City Council will instead. That's right, isn't it? We hope it's going to be positive.
If for some reason the investment returns are a negative, then it would have increased the pension liability, but that wouldn't affect the HRA at all unless that was a long-term position and the employer's contributions had to change accordingly. But because the employer contributions are only assessed on a 3-year basis, it's likely to smooth out over that period anyway.
Okay, and any profits don't come back to us, they stay within the pension as well?
Yes, any profits on the investment returns just reduce the pension scheme liability.
Okay. No, thank you for that.
Right, thank you, Lucy. Bob? Muted, Bob.
Sorry, I'd just like to say I just share my concerns with Alan over the neighbourhood board funding, because being a member of the neighbourhood board, I'd hate to think anything's going to happen to the funding. But the main thing is, Charlene has just said she's been trying to log in for 20 minutes and she cannot get it in. It's not even accepting the password, so she apologises, but she's not dropped out of the meeting. It's not her doing.
Okay, right. Thank you for that, Bob. I don't think we can do anything about that at this stage. No. Okay, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Just on paragraph 4.2 on the Milestone House item, second down.
Yeah.
I chaired the Health and Safety Forum this afternoon, and there were a number of reports on the forum regarding violence and aggression against our staff. Issues of people trying to kick in the doors, attack windows, security staff being attacked, staff and their relatives being threatened. So I just want to say there is a need to keep an eye on security at Milestone House to ensure that it's adequate for the protection of our staff who have a very difficult time working there.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that, Ian. That's the point that Michael was made, that these things have been raised. And
I'm backing what Michael has said.
Yeah, thank you. Lucy and Alan, your hands are still up. Do you wish to contribute again, or are they still up from last time? Okay, right. Thank you. If there's nothing else, then thank you very much for that, Michael. We'll move on to Sean, property update.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Yeah, starting with the usual, you'll see that the Appendix 1 on CMIS has been updated, and it's great to see sites, starting to progress and move up the list. And since the last meeting, and, we've had Christmas in between, we've got a couple of sites that have entered the planning process. So that's Cricklewood Avenue and Grange Avenue. I'm really pleased to see Grange Avenue going into the planning process. You'll recall, it feels almost years ago when we had that initial look at the plans that we'd got for that site. We've now completed all of the surveys and considered all the alternative access routes into the site, and we've got a really neat scheme that's going into that's in planning now. And following on from our fantastic experience of building the bungalows for the War Memorial Village Trust, we've learnt the lessons from that and applied them to this scheme, and this will effectively be the City Council / Derby Homes' first net zero carbon housing scheme, and we've managed to achieve that really simply. I'm not looking at bells and whistles here. We've gone for lots of thermal insulation, low carbon heating, and solar panels embedded within the roof. So that will mean that the running costs are low, and that's particularly important, when we're seeing energy prices increase. So it's great to see that one going in, and I'm looking forward to getting on with that site. So any questions any individuals have got around the detailed information that's on CMIS, then please get back to me. I'm happy to take those. Anything on new build from anyone? I see the hand up from Jan.
Jan, yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to show you how good the app is, because so Grange Avenue. So I've got. Can you see that? So on my. So I can have that in the meeting, can see sort of everything that Sean's talking about. It's really, really good.
I'm impressed, Jan.
Hold on. Can you use your fingers to enlarge it so you can read the small print?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah.
Are you on commission, John?
No, but say it's good.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that, John. Right. Sean, carry on.
Great, I'll carry on. 4.3, a proactive responsive maintenance service. Now, that's not always, what people think responsive maintenance is, but as I get back from Christmas and you sit in the office, you think, what resolutions?
Chair.
Oh,
yes.
Sorry,
Lucy. Yeah.
Lucy would like to come in on new build.
Oh,
all right. Sorry, Lucy.
No, thank you. I know we can all get excited about iPads. I had two questions on here. One was regarding the plan. Yeah. Where we've got, it isn't all aligned with, and I should just mention that I am on planning control, that the plan is north at the top of the sheet of paper, which is quite convenient, and loads of these houses, bungalows, have south facing one roof, and some of them have east and west facing roofs, and I just wondered what the analysis was saying about the PV value for those roofs, whether they're going to go on both east and west faces and just the south faces, or what's the plan?
The expectation, Lucy, will be the ones that are east-west that will split the system across both faces, so the benefit in the morning and in the afternoon, and the south-facing roofs will obviously have their panels fitted to the south-facing face of the roof. We thought really carefully about this and evaluated each one in terms of its orientation, and we still achieve the net zero target that we're looking for. The ones that are east-west may have one or two panels more as a result of being able to use both planes of the roof. But even east and west, you're still producing 85–90% of what you get if you were south. In any case, it's about managing that demand as well in terms of when you're using your appliances and so on and so forth. So it's just great to see them. I love them in the roof when they're embedded in the roof. They look so neat as well. I'll get some pictures over to you for that. Yeah, okay. Cool.
And the second thing was these plans, this table, and just it needs updating.
Oh, okay. Missed on it.
So there are things that say that we haven't got planning approval, but we're going to start in 2021, which just needs looking at. And it also talks about 64 bungalows on Grange Avenue. So it's just a matter of sending us up-to-date information rather than things that are contradictory.
I'll run through that with the team then, Lucy, make sure we correct those errors.
Okay. Thank you, Lucy.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I kind of, as I was saying, you settle into the job, back from the Christmas break, and you think, what challenges shall we set the team for this year? How can we improve the service from how we delivered it last year? And from a responsive maintenance point of view, I really want to make sure that we maintain the momentum about being proactive with that service, and don't just look back at what broke yesterday and fix it, but preempt what issues might occur. And in particular, and you remember we had a brief conversation about this at the away day, when you've got issues around mold or condensation, not just simply carrying out a mould wash or providing advice and support, but then having a follow-up check to make sure that the actions that you've agreed in are actually working and provide further support. So that's something that I'm pushing for the team to continue to do, to adopt that approach. So I just wanted to kind of mention that to you. On the top of page 24, which is 434, we're also looking to try and use innovative solutions as well to provide the service, in particular to save some costs and provide a safer service as well. So Michael points out to me most years that scaffold costs are always increasing. We always tend to find ourselves spending more. We want to make sure people are carrying out work safely, but we do erect a lot of scaffolds for inspection work, and it's not always that scaffold that's used for the repair work, depending on what needs to be done, or indeed sometimes there isn't a follow-on repair. So we've purchased a drone, so we've now got a drone as an employee of Derby Homes. We've not named him yet, or her, or he, or they.
You surprised me.
There you go. It'll get one soon, I'm sure. But initial feedback in terms of teams considering, the use of that device, is really positive. And a few other teams are thinking, actually, flue inspections for the gas team and for roofing inspections and work around planned maintenance. It saves the cost of scaffolding, but most importantly, it saves people having to go up to a height as well. So the cameras really are very detailed on these devices now, and can provide you with a lot of really useful information. And you kind of get a full video of what you find in there as well. So again, just about being proactive with the way we deliver the service. Shall I move on to SAT ratings? Because this is an item that got picked up at the last meeting in terms of the discrepancy that was pointed out quite rightly by Jan in terms of the information that she'd looked at. Jan had looked at the national EPC register that's available online to anyone, and all EPC ratings that have been carried out are registered on an online database. And she'd reviewed those, I think, for the area that she lives, which is the Austin estate, and she discovered that there were many more that were in the D, E, F and G band than I was reporting when I was talking about council housing in that area and the work that we've got to do to try and make sure we're improving on that. I've discovered the reason for that. The reason is the EPC ratings that are on a national database, many were carried out ahead of us carrying out energy efficiency improvement works over the course of the last 10 years. We were compelled to have to carry out an EPC ahead of the work before we obtained the grant funding, but not compelled to have to carry out an EPC after that work was concluded. What we did do, however, of course, is update our own internal records. We've got quite a detailed database of asset information for each home that enables us to carry out and produce quite a detailed energy performance rating that includes a SAT rating and a band for it as well. So to the right hand side of the right hand table that you've got in the report there shows the actual performance of the 567 homes that are currently council houses within the Austin area. So you'll see that there's a lot fewer that are in the Ds, Es, Fs and Gs, and that's purely down to the fact that they've been improved since those EPC ratings were carried out. Now, EPC certificates only have a 10-year lifespan to them. So as we start to let properties in that area, new EPCs will be produced with the updated information on them in terms of the improvement work. And hey presto, we'll start to see those figures starting to match up. But we didn't feel compelled to, I'm not saying waste the money, but it would have been a bit of a waste to produce an EPC when we know our own system can produce the result for that. So that's the reason for the discrepancy in terms of what you look at on the national EPC database and what we actually produce from a very detailed and very good system that we use, to carry out an evaluation on every home every single quarter. Are there any queries or questions on that? I'll try my best to answer them. Or shall I move on then? So on the top of the next page, we have, just to give you an idea of where we are across the whole stock, the SAT bandings for all 12,000 and odd homes that we manage, within the city of Derby. So you can see that we've got just under, just under 600 in total that are Ds, Es or Fs, and What's great about those 600 is that we've got plans in place for pretty much most of those over the course of the next 3 or 4 years to get them up to at least a C. So out of that 600, 250 of them will be the cast iron homes around the Bingham Street, the Spider Island. And of course, you'll know that we've got plans to improve those using the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund. We are still awaiting the outcome of that bid. It's been delayed until February, so fingers crossed there. And we're expected to complete work to those dwellings over a 3-year period. We've got flats that we're currently improving at Mackworth, and they'll form part of that chunk of properties that are that 600. We've already dealt with about 150 of them over the course of the last 3 or 4 months through the Green Homes grant funding that we're putting to good use there. We've got another 3 or 4 blocks that we're utilising the ELDF funding and following the track of what's been done at Nottingham with the Energy Sprong project there. And then, of course, we've got 75 odd bungalows at Bretton Avenue that we're currently working up some redevelopment plans for as well. So by the time we've dealt with those chunks, we really are going to have a handful of predominantly tenant refusals. And we continue to ask, stopping short of harassing people on a regular basis, can we please come and carry out this work? And we've always got the funding available, should those individuals move on, and we'll pick that work up at void standing. So I'm feeling really confident that we're in a strong position to be able to achieve the 2030 target of all homes to be at least a band C. In fact, I've got a feeling we'll probably achieve that 3 or 4 years ahead of that target. So that's something that's positive, that's dropped into the City Council's climate change strategy in terms of our action plan towards dealing with council houses. So that concludes my summary on energy efficiency issues in this report. If that's okay, I can move on to compliance. I can't see any hands appearing.
Yes, please, Sean.
Yeah, on to compliance. So you've got the usual Appendix 2 there that shows full compliance across all 6 areas. You'll notice the column that is there now that gives you a idea of the percentage of live certificates. So although that's just short of 100%, that is effectively the 18 properties that we're still trying to gain access for on gas safety, but we're happy that we've made the relevant number of visits to still be compliant, and the same goes for electrical safety. So I'm pleased to report continued good performance in those areas. Another aspect that I wanted to talk to you about around compliance is something that's going to come through by changing legislation by the government. They're looking to extend the requirement for all social landlords to fit not only smoke alarms but also carbon monoxide detectors to their properties. So this is going to be something that's going to apply not just to private sector landlords but also public sector. So we've got on with this one. We expect legislation to be in place within the next 6 to 7 months or so. So we've already engaged our supply chain and put our feelers out for up to 20,000 carbon monoxide detectors. We are looking to fit 10-year battery devices. They have to be fitted in each room that's got the appliance, but not including kitchens with cookers. It doesn't apply there. But gas fires and boilers, rooms that have got those appliances in, will have them installed as part of our gas servicing regime. So I'm really thankful that the gas team have been very positive about embracing this and are quite happy to be trained up and to be able to install these devices, during that process. And then, of course, on an annual basis, they'll test those devices as well to make sure that they're working okay. I do think for Derby that it's a fairly low risk area. Otherwise, we'd have fitted them ahead of now. We've got appliances that are room sealed, so the chance of any leaks are very, very low. And the same with the depletion valves that we've got on any gas fires. But anything that improves safety that comes through this route, is something that we are keen to embrace. So I think that just about wraps up my report.
Right. There are 2 hands up, Sean. Jan and Bob.
Thank you, Chair. Sean, just can you remind me, I'm sure you have told us before, but I can't remember what you said. The properties where we've not been able to gain access for the gas and the electric checks, what is the process to kind of, once we can't gain access, does it eventually go to court to gain access?
Absolutely. Legal action will be taken at a backstop, Jan, but we always try and avoid that by using all tactics to get in. But yeah, that's the ultimate backstop, absolutely. And
what sort of timescales are we looking at? And so kind of like how long, I'm kind of like thinking, how long do these properties stay on this report? And how do we know kind of which stage those ones are at, that they are progressing?
Predominantly the ones that are in the port as outstanding have normally had 3 visits, and we often then expect that after that, we'll use different tactics to get in by liaising with other teams within the organisation. I'm not aware of any recently that have had to go to court and be cut off or us gain access through that route. And if that was the case, I'd highlight those in the comments for you. You know, to give you an idea of that. I'll make a point of making sure the team do give us a little bit more commentary on that. I don't want to guess at where we are from a timing point of view.
Yeah.
I'm talking to the team.
I'm just thinking from our point of just kind of checking that they are progressing. We just need something there that it's transparent for us to see.
Cool, no problem. Yeah,
Thank you.
Put into the commentary. I thought to the team about that.
Maria, were you going to comment on what's just been said? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd really just want to thank Jan, because I think it's an excellent point that she's just raised. And I have made a note because it links with my item later on. We will report regularly on any compliant cases, but compliant with no current certificate, where it goes for a period of over 3 months. Does that sound acceptable?
Okay.
And that will be a management report that comes to the board, because there is still a safety risk, although it's minimal. And I just think that was a really good point made, Jan. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Maria. Bob.
Half of it's been answered already, because I was going to raise exactly the same point as Jan. But my other part is, Sean, is there any trend to this? Are we seeing the same, how can I put this, the same culprits time after time?
I guess that probably will be the case, Bob, but I can't provide you with that precise information without checking back with the team in terms of the actual addresses. But I guess that we get the usual offenders in terms of, you know, making it a little tricky for us. So maybe there's further action that we can do with serial non-access. I'd like you to call them offenders, but you know, it's not very helpful. You know, if you're not able to get in.
But no, because I mean, why wouldn't you let somebody in to check your home is safe? And this is just what I can't get my head around. And I share Jan's sentiments exactly. And why wouldn't you not do it? So, and I'm also sharing Maria's thing about health and safety, because this will be the one time something will go wrong. And again, Derby Homes failed to check. You know, I'm just have all these concerns as a board member and as a human being.
Okay. I mean, I'm pretty sure the team will also learn from issues where there are certain techniques that work for certain individuals, for not others, but employ them the year after, you know, just to keep a note on the file to make sure that, you know, this individual really would prefer a visit, say, after 6 o'clock. And we can arrange that. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
And that's the reasons why we just struggled with that. So, you know, I'm not, you know, there's a number of sides to the story, isn't there, I suppose?
Dare I be brave and suggest, do we have a blitz and say to these people, to people who've not been there, you know, do we go over an overtime rates and get gas engineers to go out after 6 o'clock?
We do.
Or am I swearing?
Do that.
No, we do that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay.
That's good.
Right.
We camp outside for some of them. We camp outside for some, Bob.
Good.
Right.
Good.
Yeah. Right. Okay. I've got Shiraz and Lucy now. In that order.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Just a quick one, Sean. I know you mentioned carbon monoxide detectors. How are we sort of in terms of the smoke alarms? Are we still installing battery operated ones? Are we going on to hardwired or what?
They're all hardwired, Shiraz, you'll be pleased to hear. So smoke alarms are all hardwired, are in specific locations within the property, often wide off the lighting circuit, actually. And they're tested on a regular basis. So we've got 100% compliance and coverage that every single one is a hardwired smoke alarm. But from a carbon monoxide alarm point of view, they have to be located in a slightly different location, because carbon monoxide as a gas is heavier than air. So they're positioned a little lower. So even a combined smoke and carbon monoxide alarm might not cut it for us in terms of providing that level of safety. So we'll be trained up and position these alarms in the right spot for them to detect the carbon monoxide at the earliest opportunity. And to be fair, in terms of going for the 10-year battery operated device, over the course of the next 10 years, we may be swapping some heating systems away from gas, and that will mean there's no need then for a carbon monoxide alarm for electric heated solutions, which we might switch to. So most other authorities across the country are going for a battery operated option for the carbon monoxide detectors too. So I've done a bit of checking with colleagues across the field.
Yeah. Right.
Are you sure all our sort of homes are hardwired systems?
They're all hardwired smoke alarms, Shiraz. All hardwired smoke alarms. Absolutely, every single one of them.
Okay.
Okay. Right, Lucy.
I'm sorry, I want to go back one step to the installation and the energy efficiency side of things, just to ask whether there has been any approach for getting grants for the business parts of our estate. But I haven't got the details, but my husband took a message from my son who works in Manchester, and they've got quite a lot of grants for council-owned buildings, business buildings rather than homes in Manchester, which he is involved in improving. And he says, is Derby doing any of this? And I've not heard about it. And if it takes somebody to put a grant bid together, and the city council somehow hasn't managed to get its act together, if I find out that we can do it, can we do it for the buildings we're using?
Possibly, and I'm working closely with the council on this aspect, Lucy. I'm part of a working group, an officer working group that's chaired by a guy called Steve Kaplan, and he's looking at council-owned assets and council-owned buildings, and he'll be exploring, you know, different sources of funding to try and get that work carried out. Also, the council have got a fund available as well for investment in energy efficiency work, and I know that there's been a few ideas that are going to benefit council buildings that have submitted ideas to be supported by that fund that the council have actually generated themselves as well. So not only external funding, but they've got some internal funding that's available for this sort of work. Well, you know about that. I'd
like some external funding if we can get it. If I find out anything, I'll copy it to you and to Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, and I'll keep the pressure on with that group as well, Lucy. You know, for that push for external funding. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Thank you. Any other comments? Anything else, Sean?
No, not from me.
Okay. Right. Thank you. A7 then, Claire.
Thank you, Chair. 3 brief areas of update in my report this time. The first is to update the board on the Homeless Prevention Grant Award for 2022-23. Very happy that the award has been allocated at the same level as last year. And this is our main grant allocation around homelessness and homelessness prevention. So still a healthy grant in terms of being able to carry on the programmes that we are already running in the city. My second update is in relation to a new grant, the Protect and Vaccinate grant, which again is an award through central government aimed primarily at those living in temporary accommodation or rough sleeping in terms of the third vaccine, the booster programme. And Derby was awarded nearly 58,000 to be able to target that group. Activities such as travel costs, vouchers, funding to run sessions, outreach sessions and clinics have all been put in place. We've been working directly with Wilson Street Surgery and also with the rough sleeping paramedic Tracy, and I've been able to run 2 clinics so far on Saturdays where we are proactively targeting the cohort that we support in terms of rough sleeping primarily. The third area of my report, and one that I'm really delighted about updating you on, is an alternate giving scheme. Now, this is something that we've been talking about in the city for a long time, and it does form part of our homelessness and rough sleeping strategy to encourage citizens of Derby not to give directly to those that are begging in the city, and instead to look to other ways to support homeless charities to be able to work directly with those that are suffering from homelessness or rough sleeping. We have been able now to finally land a project in partnership with Community Action Derby, and Derby Homes are going to initially fund the setup for 2 years of this project through grant from central government, and there will essentially be popping up within the next month or two QR codes around the city in areas where people have historically been known to beg, as an alternate way to be able to support the homeless community. So 100% of the donation will go directly to homeless charities. People will be able to check to decide which charity they want to directly donate to through those QR codes, but all of those charities will be those that are working as part of the Homeless Reduction Forum and part of the rough sleeping strategy in the city. Those are the 3 areas in my report this time, Chair.
Okay, right, thank you, Claire. Jeanne, you go, hands up.
Thank you. Claire, just such a really positive report again with all of the funding and but like you, I was like really excited about the alternate giving scheme because I know that it is such the right way to go with rather than giving money directly to rough sleepers. One of the things that I just wanted to check about it was the publicity around sort of reporting back to the general public about the difference that their donations make, and just make it, because obviously that will then promote more people to use the QR codes as well. And I just wanted to ask if you've got any thoughts about that, about how that was going to work.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, we most definitely have a communication strategy that will sit alongside the diverted giving scheme. And I guess we've already tried to do some precursor work already, working with Derby Telegraph. I don't know if people saw before Christmas, there were 2 or 3 articles that were run in the newspaper and also online. And one of them was specifically focused on how citizens of Derby can help support rough sleepers and support them in different ways than giving directly to beggars in the city. So absolutely agree, it needs to come with a comprehensive communications plan.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Lucy?
I agree, it's a very positive report, and I wanted to pick up on that same sort of angle of people's involvement. 2 things. Firstly, was the team, the community groups that are involved in the alternate giving scheme. Can we engage them in the vaccination programme as well, and see if they can help facilitate that and get people into the right areas in their interactions? Secondly, just to make sure, and I think from how you introduced it, you may already have it on the agenda, is to make sure we got the QR codes also into district centres and the retail parks, where there are constantly other areas that attract people who are begging.
Yeah.
And for those people who don't have a smartphone and a QR code reader, can we have some leaflets around so that people can, maybe in the shops nearby where they can pick up a leaflet to be able to donate when they get home and find a website?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We can look to get some leaflets around. The alternate, as you say, is to be able to go online and be able to donate directly online.
Yeah, and there will be people who won't go online and who want to donate anyway. I don't know how we can accommodate those, but maybe through local banks or something. Perhaps we can think about that with community action or something.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, thank
you,
Lucy.
Lovely, good work.
Right, Roy.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that the digital deficit is one of the issues that we're looking at very carefully across the city, and also with this alternate giving, there is going to be a proactive response from the Safer Neighbourhoods teams across the city with regard to enforcement of some of the legislation. So it will be a carrot and stick approach, and I'm really pleased that this has got the support of board members, because it's something we've been working on for a long time. We've taken a lot of organisations with us on the homelessness strategy, and it's paying off.
Thank you, Roy. Any further comments to Claire? If not, thank you for that. As people have said, a very positive report, Claire. And moving on to A8 health and safety update. Sean, are you doing this?
Mike, thanks very much, Mike. Yeah, we had a really well attended health and safety forum meeting this afternoon, which was great to see. And we went through the accident and incident reports and the violence and aggression reports. Ian's actually already fed back, that we had quite a debate around some of the issues around Milestone House. Some positives there. We're really pleased to see that the doors are standing up to any hammer that they're getting. The new doors that were fitted a few months ago, so that was a positive report back from the staff that feel much safer in that building as a result of that. And we also had a really positive update from Nick, who works with violence and aggression issues, in terms of some recent positive conversations that he's had with the police, in particular Inspector Keane, around our partnership working and supporting each other. So that's absolutely very positive in terms of respect to that. On the back page of the report, you could tell this report was wrote in December. In December, we're all reverting to working from home. How things change? Well, for now anyway, who knows? We're back more to a hybrid arrangement, where it's more of a 50-50 basis, and people are readjusting to that. So the offices that I think we mentioned were closed are now going to be reopened again, and we're going to be moving forward cautiously, but still, trying to, make sure, we're operating in that hybrid system, so much as we were around about November last year, really. I think I've missed anything, Ian. My computer died on me halfway through the health and safety forum meeting, so I had to restart it. So was there anything that I missed then, Ian, that I've not mentioned?
No, that was very comprehensive, Sean.
Okay. Do you wish to add anything, Ian, before I call on Lucy?
No, I just wanted to. The only thing I would add is that I think the system of reporting violence and aggression, the system has been tweaked recently to take on board the feelings of staff when they are the subject of violence and aggression, which I think is a very positive move, because it doesn't just report about what happened in the actual incident, it reports on the feelings of the staff and how they've been affected by it, because some staff are subjected to repeated incidents like this, and it could obviously be quite stressful over a period of time. So I think it's positive that we're including that now in the reports.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Lucy.
Yeah, and on a similar theme, I really feel for the team at Milestone House, because it's clearly a really difficult job that they're doing. And I wondered what learning there was from other local authorities and similar hostels, and whether there's anything that we can pick up or we can explore or do differently that might reduce those levels of aggression, because they seem to be getting worse. And so maybe we've changed and we're doing something that's not helping. And I don't know, I just feel that maybe there's some learning that we could be doing.
Shall I pick that up, Chair?
Yeah,
yes, please. Yeah.
We do keep in contact with our neighbouring hostels in Nottingham and Leicester to keep a kind of health check, a barometer in terms of what's happening regionally. And we don't appear to be out of kilter with the region. I think that there periodically are periods where we have more a bigger concentration of more complex individuals in the city, and so we occasionally get some of those bumps. I think in terms of managing the environment at Milestone House, that's constantly under review. And I think, for an example of that being the additional security that we've had on for a little while now. We are constantly working with our partners, talking with the police in terms of whether or not our strategies are right. We need to make sure that we have adequate engagement and enforcement opportunities around those people that are wanting to engage with us and those people that are not, and making sure that we get the right balance of continuing to offer support at all opportunities, at the same time making sure that as a system those people that won't cooperate and are in that space of criminality are dealt with through enforcement.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just ask do we think that it could be partly to do with our success at moving on the people who will engage, and that's leading to a different mix of people there who are the hard to engage with people who are left, or is that?
Yeah, that's not really our experience.
No. Okay.
I would say it really isn't.
No.
I think we have a number of people in the city at the moment that need a holistic approach around enforcement and engagement. And I think that we are doing that, utilising the various agencies around specific individuals and taking the approach necessary to a particular individual at a particular time.
Okay. Maria, and then Ian.
Yeah, just very quickly, just to take what Claire said a little bit further. I mean, you're absolutely right, Lucy. The seriousness of these incidents is increasing, as is the frequency. And Claire and I very recently attended a meeting of the Cabinet and senior leadership team at the Council to share these concerns, and also to make some proposals for how we think we need to move to the next stage of working, because as Claire says, absolutely we need a different model for individuals who aren't willing to engage, and it really does need to be a model that is not solely a housing one. So we're having much wider conversations. Roy, as cabinet member, is involved front and centre in those discussions, and it really is one of the things at the top of both mine and Claire's list.
Okay. Yep. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you. That's
Ian.
helpful.
I think, Chair, sometimes it goes in cycles. Some people who cause problems end up in jail, then they're out of circulation for a little while, then they come back on the streets again, and there's a problem. I think the important thing is that Derby Homes as an organisation deals appropriately with the various situations, so that we don't have a situation where our staff are being subjected to ongoing threats. And then if something did actually happen to one of our staff and we hadn't taken appropriate action, we as an organisation would be sort of viewed in a very bad light. So I think it's important that we deal with things in a proper and appropriate manner to protect our staff and to ensure that they're not, insofar as it can be done, they're not subjected to sort of unreasonable circumstances.
Yeah, thank you, Ian. Right. If there's nothing else on there, we'll go back to you, Michael, now. A9 operational budget.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to introduce each of the 5 areas individually, and then just take comments on each one rather than trying to go through the report in detail. The first one is the annual budget for next year, which is quite a detailed proposal for 23-24, and we've also got provisional budgets for the 2 years after that. I just want to reiterate what we discussed at the consultation briefing back in November, that the Derby Homes budget now is in a position where the underlying position is at a break-even basis. Now, there are deficits plans for the next few years, but those are on investments which are planned to be funded from reserves. But the fundamental position is that the underlying budget is breaking even, and we are re-emphasising that to staff. Now, you'll see when we look at the pressures and the savings, there's a significant amount of pressures for next year and a reduced amount of savings, and that ratio can't continue. In very crude terms, any pressures that we put forward in the future will have to be met by corresponding savings. But we are in a relatively strong position. All of the savings that we're proposing next year won't have an impact on service standards at all. They're more of an accounting nature in rebalancing the budget. So in terms of where we are for next year, it's a positive position. Happy to take any questions on the budget part of the report. And we no hand. Oh, Lucy.
Yeah, Lucy. Yes. Muted, Lucy.
Sorry, I'm just wondering where the budget part ends.
So the budget part in the actual support and information ends at 4.5.
Okay, so I have 2 questions before 4.5, which are in terms of the day-to-day repairs, increased scaffolding obligations and works. There's an extra 70,000 put in halfway down 4.2. Is this despite the use of drones?
Yeah, what we're finding is over the last couple of years, Spend on scaffolding has increased from around £200,000 a year to about £350,000 a year. So that's £70,000 extra budget is what is required in our contractor's budget to get things aligned, if you like, budget wise. So as Sean had emphasised earlier, there is a considerable increase in spend on scaffolding, and hence the need to look at alternatives.
And the other one I was going to ask about is in 4.3, reduce asbestos survey budget after completion of 5-year cycle of new surveys. Can we do anything about taking the asbestos out of buildings so that we don't have to survey for them because we got rid of it?
Well, do you want to take that one, Sean, or?
I'm just thinking how many billions we might need to do that. I'm really happy that we're managing asbestos in a really safe way in its current location, and that we do that, systematically. But I know where it is, working with it safely.
Okay, that's right.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Carry on then, Michael, with part 2.
Okay. So the next section is reserves, and I think it'd be useful just to refer to the table on 4.7, which is on page 44 of the report. What that table does, it replicates what we discussed back in November, where we've got around £14 million of usable reserves, and we've got a list of planned investment areas. And we've got some reserves that we're planning to set aside effectively as a contingency that we're required to have. And you'll note that one of those contingencies is £1 million towards the potential stroke likelihood of homelessness grants ending, and they're likely to be a run-on of costs until final exit plans for some of those services can be agreed. So happy to take any queries on the planned use of reserves.
Oh, sorry, I put that down. Can I put that down and put it up again?
Yeah, so Alan first, I think, and then Lucy.
Right, okay. I'm interested in the term plan for usable reserves. How much have we got in unusable reserves?
About 6 million, and that is the houses that we own, stock on the vans, and the vans themselves. So to try and keep it simple, I've classed them as unusable because we don't intend to sell them and generate cash. The usable reserves are what I would class as reserves that eventually will turn themselves into cash.
Right, okay, you've confused me a bit more. You mentioned vans. Vans are an asset, aren't they? Not a reserve.
No, that's what they're an asset, but because we don't intend to sell the van for it, we won't get any cash for it effectively. You're not going to realise any cash when that van gets sold at the end of its life.
So how does that? I'm just confused at how that makes it a reserve.
Well, the van at the minute is classed as a fixed asset, and it's written off over we write the vans off over 7 years. So they're valued on our balance sheet at around £1 million or so. But if we was to sell all the vans off at one go and realise, say, £1 million from them, then you'd have cash to reinvest. But what I'm saying is, because there's no intention to do that, then it's that's excluded from what I've classed as usable reserves.
Is that normal practice? Because that doesn't sound right to me.
Yeah, it's perfectly normal practice to capitalise fixed assets like vans and write them off over the operational life of the vehicle.
Okay.
Okay. Maria, did you want to come in on this point before I go to Lucy?
I did, yes, because actually I asked Michael if he could start using this terminology because I thought it was easier for board members, council colleagues and all non-accountants like me to understand, because I think all board members are aware that there's previously been lots of conversations about Derby Homes being very rich and the size of the reserves that it holds. But when people understand that a large part of that is either bricks and mortar or capitalised equipment and plant, it's the cash reserves that are the ones that we have the flexibility to make decisions around. So if I have confused Alan, I take full responsibility for that, but it was definitely coming from a non-accountant background.
Right, thank you, Maria. Lucy?
Yeah, can I thank I appreciate the paragraph a little bit later on about the van replacement strategy and that philosophy. I think that's really good, particularly at the moment when we are moving through technology changes. But I wanted to ask specifically on there that we've got the extra cost of vans if electric. Have we also costed what's the charging facilities, whether that's going to be in on site or having to fit out staff homes to be able to do the charging? Is that included as part of those costs? And I've got one other question as well.
Yeah, if we're honest, no, it's not. At the minute, that is just the capital cost of the van. What we will be doing is looking at all options around van charging as part of the evaluation of the move to electric vans at that stage. It's far too early to crystallise any specific plans because we've obviously got a depot review as well. So we really we need to plan on how and where the electric vans would be recharged up as part of the wider evaluation of the vans.
Okay, my other question is just under 4.6. It talks about 0.9 million surplus, whereas previously you talked about 500,000. Can you just tell me where we really are? Is that the same number?
Well, it is the same number. You are very meticulous in spotting these things. Can I used 0.9 million for two reasons. One, just to get it up to a nice round figure of 14 million to allocate out reserves to try and keep it simple. But what history has told us is when we've been doing our management accounts and reporting the figure throughout the year to the board, when we come to our final year end figures, most of the time it's ended up with a larger surplus than what we've been reporting previously, because we are quite prudent and cautious when we're doing our forecasted spends and our forecasted income in certain areas in our management accounts. So I would hope that our surplus is at least 0.5 million, and I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up at 0.9 million. But we, just to try and give us a bit of flexibility, on a 45 million pound turnover business, 1% is £500,000. It's very, very difficult to forecast within 1%.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Capital budgets then,
Capital
Michael?
budgets. That's it might be useful to have a quick look at Appendix 2, which is on page 52. That just summarises notional budgets around new homes. And the reason why I'm classed it as notional budgets is because it's very difficult to be aware of what opportunities might come up. I think the balance that we've got at the minute is appropriate, where any larger types of schemes above 250,000 come through to the board for approval. But what these budgets do is allow officers to take advantage of individual properties below 250,000 and just crack on and acquire them if the opportunity arises. You'll see that I've put in a funding plan of use of cash reserves and loan finance. Because we've got relatively high levels of cash at the minute, we'll be using cash in the short term and then loan finance if and when we need that in the future. Alan, did you have a query on the new homes capital programme?
Well, actually, you're talking about page 50 and 51, and I've got some queries on that. I don't not what you're specifically talking about.
Sorry, I'll page 52 is the capital plan.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. I got a query on page 51 then.
Go on then, Alan.
Okay.
Okay. Well, first of all, you've got the detailed cost centres. You've got gas breakdowns, 1.65 million. And rising all the way up to 1.75. I just wondered whether that was why it's so high, because it's as if we're waiting for them to break down rather than repairing them, in a pre-sense.
Yeah, maybe the cost centre heading isn't as clarity of the service what it is. It's actually gas servicing and breakdown. So The majority of the work will be the annual gas servicing costs in there. And actually, if I'm honest, what we are finding is that the cost of repairs now are lower than they were in the past. We've actually made savings in that budget the last few years, mainly because the boilers that we're now using as part of the install programs are less prone to breaking down.
Okay, my next one is the tenants garden scheme. It's not really a question for you. It's really a question as I see that we're expecting less and less money, and there's going to be a big drop in 2022-23. I presume people know that something's happening. It's always been a bone of contention as a local councillor, because people are always complaining about the lack of garden attendance, which actually sort of suggests that the garden schemes are expensive rather than reasonable. And I just wondered whether there should be a decision that the board makes to remove the garden scheme and farm it out to private contractors that can do it for a lot cheaper and a lot more and get a lot more service out of it.
Okay, so if I can just explain why the net budget is dropping down next year. As part of the arrangements with the council around the management fee this year, there's a number of service charges that were previously retained in the council that are now coming over to Derby Homes. The home decoration scheme is the largest one, and the garden maintenance scheme is the other one. So that reduction in the net cost of the service is the service charge income now coming over to Derby Homes. So the net cost of operating the garden maintenance scheme is around £150,000 a year to Derby Homes. In terms of your questions around the value for money of that service, as you can see by these figures, it's still being operated at a subsidy and at a cost to Derby Homes.
Well, again, for the other board members, maybe that's something we should consider, how we operate it, because if it's costing us costing Derby Homes money, then maybe there's a better way of providing the service. But that's for another time. I just wanted that on record. The other question was, what is the difference between S310250, which is apprentices, and A100800 repairs team apprentice?
Okay, the apprentice budget in S310250 is predominantly for housing management related apprentices, and the one in A100-800s are more trade based apprentices.
So they are different apprentices, you're telling me?
Yeah, there's a budget to recharge the cost of trade apprentices, which goes through to that A100-800 budget, and then there's a corporate type of budget. As you can see, there's a very small amount there of and a small amount for the corporate ones. To be honest, most of the housing management apprentices get recharged through to one of the housing management cost centres, and that apprentice cost centre that you referred to in whichever one is S310250 is effectively a holding account which gets fully recharged out.
Right. Okay. Next question is on IT. Again, are we spending over £2 million on computers?
Yes. And what we find is when we do our benchmarking with the Housemark, IT is an area where we are around the median type of area. But what we find is that that type of investment in IT does allow us to operate and get the levels of satisfaction that we're currently achieving. It also includes the investment in the new financial management system, which is a one-off cost as well.
Right. Okay. But obviously the figure in there is just a slowly increasing figure. So when you say it's a one-off cost, is that not a lot?
You're quite right. That 185,000 for next year, it should be shown as coming out in the following years after that.
Okay. And the other thing that sort of interested me was we've got some contingencies there, one of them being COVID and one of them being Brexit. So what did you spend money on them?
Well, what we did a year or so ago is, because of the uncertainty around Brexit and the ongoing uncertainty around COVID, is we set budget aside to cover those anticipated extra costs. What's happened in practice is, if we're honest, we can't differentiate between the extra costs we are incurring, whether they're as a result of COVID or whether they're as a result of Brexit. So where we've got increased materials costs on our trade areas, for example, what we've done in practice is just charge them to them service cost centres, and that's why we've got overspends this year on things like day-to-day, rather than trying to categorise them out and class them as Brexit or COVID related increases. So what we've done for next year is take those budgets fully out.
Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Right, thank you, Alan. Bob.
Just like to follow on from Alan's comments about the gardening scheme. And I know it's not really up for debate at the minute, but as a tenant, I would say that the proposal to even move onto a private contract, I think would be a very serious retrograde step. The service we get at the minute is excellent. The staff are friendly and we get a good cut, and I pay for the service, and I think if it was an option of getting the quality of service and paying a bit more, I think I'd rather do that than have a private company. And I don't think, and I'll say this on for the record now, I don't think you get the same standard in quality. I know Alan means well, but as a resident, I don't think that would be a good thing.
Yeah. Thank you for that comment, Bob. But as you said, that's not really something that this is a debate at another point, I think.
I know, I've made my point.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Right, back to you, Michael.
Yeah, just going back to the capital programme around the new homes plans, we've got money in the budget to give us that flexibility if opportunities arise there. And likewise on the vans and grounds maintenance equipment, there's quite a lot of money set aside for 23-24, which is when we could be starting the electric van ordering. I think in reality that bulk spend is going to slip at least another further year. But what I wanted to do was to at least notionally put it in the budget, just in case there was any bulk purchasing arrangements we could sign up to at that time. Yeah, happy to take any queries on the capital budgets.
I've got two hands up. Are they still from the previous points? Alan and Bob.
Apologies.
Okay, right. Okay.
Next two areas, a brief one on support for aligned council services. What we have got in the budgets this year is pressures relating to a couple of areas where we are continuing to support the council around homelessness additional costs, and also a new initiative around bed and breakfast related costs. And we're taking some staff on to support the council on looking at that particular area. Any queries on those two pressures?
No. Okay, carry on.
And the final point is the stress test, which we're required to do by our regulator. I've tried to do a layman's version this year rather than a very in-depth financial analysis. But what that shows is in the table in 4.14 is where I've listed out the key financial risks to the company. I've made a risk assessment against them. They're all low risk type of ones. So my conclusion is that if something did financially adversely affect the company, there's adequate cash reserves available in the short term to accommodate that, and it would give us time to put alternative plans in as necessary. So from a compliance point of view, I'm confident that we can say that from a stress test point of view, we're more than fine, if I'm honest.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. Right. Can I take it then that we get approval as in paragraphs 2.1 to 2.4? Yep, thank you. Moving on then, A10, just for noting the forward plan of agenda items. Sorry, Lucy, yeah?
Sorry, I just want to pick up something and ask whether others think it might be a suitable, something we ought to be thinking about here. Alan highlighted the £1.6 million a year that we are spending on gas servicing and emergency repairs. On top of that, we've also got the routine replacement of heating equipment. We've lost Sean. And so there's the total cost of that is going to be quite significant. And we do know that there's going to be, to become zero carbon, we're probably going to have to get rid of all that. At the moment, we're still replacing some gas boilers. I don't know how many we've got planned to replace this year, but there's a significant saving, £1.6 million a year-ish, that we could be investing in preparing for this zero carbon by speeding up the insulation and improving those SAP ratings, which already look pretty good, but we can do better. And I wondered whether we should be looking towards having a strategy and a plan as to how we can move from where we are now and demonstrate how we can become all electric without becoming onerous for tenants. Because
Sean?
we've got the resources at the moment. So I'm just thinking whether that is something that we ought to be putting into our forward plan.
Yeah, it is something that we're giving a lot of thought to at the moment, Lucy, and it's all about timing in some respects as well, because we're here still waiting to see how gas and electricity prices level off. You know, with the price increases that we're anticipating over the course of the next year. We have to be really careful that if we just switch to replacing gas with electric, say straight away now, some houses it's going to cost tenants more to run those
Absolutely.
systems. Because you're right. You've got to get your installation levels right, but we're about as far as we can get with some properties. There's not much more we can do from a thermal insulation point of view. The other aspect, I was over at Valent yesterday at their training centre, and Michael's heart will drop when I'm going to tell you this next point. I was anticipating not having to service heat pumps as often as we do gas boilers, but actually they do need to be looked at every year. There are components within that box that do need to be maintained and kept working. You're investing a lot of money in that technology, and you've got to still service it on an annual basis. So it's a conversation I'm going to have with Michael to incorporate that into the plan. But we are absolutely focusing on at what point do we make that change. We've made it from a new build point of view. We're adopting low carbon heating on new build because they're purposely designed for those systems. But I'm just being really careful that from a fuel poverty point of view, we don't lumber tenants with extra costs by jumping in too quickly with this until we fully understand what the long-term costs of gas versus electricity are. Because of course at the moment it's 5 times more expensive per kilowatt hour for electric than it is gas. But that's going to change. Where it ends up, who knows? And
that's why I'm not saying we need to do it now, but we should start thinking about what our strategy is and putting a plan against it. And thinking that we ought to be doing that this coming year, and therefore it should be onto the forward plan of agenda items.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. We can do that.
So I'd have thought, something like next September.
Oh.
So next September seems to be a bit sort of empty by the time you get, Yeah,
I think we could leave that with Sean to come back with a report.
With a proposal.
But we've noted it. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lucy. Roy, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just coming in on that point. There are lots of options out there at the moment, which I know Sean is looking at all the time. And one of the ones that nobody's mentioned at the moment is the replacement of gas with hydrogen. So using the existing network and hydrogen as an alternative to gas boilers. Now, having investigated this, the gas industry, so the boiler industry, are currently working on boilers, and they will give you the option of transferring to hydrogen at a cost that is around £100. So it would be 3 components, so I'm led to believe. So when you look at energy saving and what can be done, you've got to bear in mind all the alternative sources.
Yeah, you're right, Roy. That was a topic of conversation at Valent as well, you know, the hydrogen issue. I mean, what would be really helpful, I think, nationally would be a better idea of the rollout of that technology as well. Because if it's going to be over 15 years from now, there's not much point fitting a boiler that's hydrogen ready if I've got to replace it before hydrogen is going to start to come through. So we could do with a bit more clarity from government, to be fair, in terms of, you know, the rollout of hydrogen. I've got a feeling it's going to take a bit of time in terms of that technology and the cost of it, and whether or not it's truly green or not. There's a whole load of things. But yeah, all being considered, Roy.
I think it's not so much the technology that's not ready. I think it's actually getting sufficient hydrogen that is also zero carbon.
Yeah.
That is the really big challenge, and we're nowhere near that at the moment.
And stopping the very small hydrogen molecules leaking out from existing gas pipes.
Yeah, that might be an issue as well.
Yes. Okay, right. Item A11, disclosures. As usual, there are no disclosures. So that brings us to the end of part A, the public items. I'd just like to thank anybody who has been joining us online. And Paul, can you